Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G. I'm here every Monday night with very special guests from all walks of life with different perspectives. We have spiritual conversations. We also talk about things that are happening in the world. We talk about how we can support you in your life. I love that my guests always come and they drop gems that you can take away from conversations with Reverend G. And I'm here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'm also on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason and on YouTube as Reverend Grenetta Mason. And you can find me on Instagram as Rev Grenetta. One of the things that's important to me about spirituality is that we look at spirituality from a practical point of view. How does it support you in your everyday life? What spiritual practices have you used at any point in your life that you can talk about that you felt were very important and instrumental in getting you where you needed to go? You know, one of the things I want to support you in doing is finding joy. So, what tools and what practices can support you in finding that joy? Finding joy, living your best life with grace and ease, that sounds like a really good thing. So, I look forward to supporting you in that. Tonight, I'm really excited because I have a very, very special guest. Renata Del Carmen. She is a chief lifestyler. She's an entrepreneur. She's an author. She's a mother. She just does so many things. And I'm so excited for her to come and share with you guys all the things that she's doing. And I'm sure she'll leave you with something that you'll want to check her out. Hey, Renata.
Hi, Reverend G. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy you could join me tonight. So let's start. I was telling them, when I introduced you, like so many things. So I always think, so where can we start, right? And because I love fashion, right? So I'm gonna start where I want to talk about what's important. Can you talk to us? I know that you have a degree in fashion, you studied
Mhm,
fashion,
mhm,
and fashion design. That was your career. So you
mhm.
could talk to us about how in studying that you've transitioned now to be I'm gonna get this right now. A chief, right? Lifestyler, right?
Yes.
Right. I like that, right? It's a new term for me. So I'm so excited to hear about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, first off, you look amazing. I love purple is my favorite color.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, so fashion, and I know you are always very fashionable as well. So I'm excited to talk about this. It's interesting because I grew up in a Caribbean household with my mom is Guyanese, and she, from a very young girl, became a seamstress at about 14, I think. And that was like what she did. That's what she was known for until she came here to the United States and studied nursing and became a nurse. And then she did both. And so that is really where my love for fashion began, is just watching my mom sew and make like everything under the sun for anyone, just create it in her mind and deliver, and it just be amazing. And I went through magazines and Vogue and Essence and just loving all of the beauty that was available through fashion. Everything just seems so glamorous, and it was what made me pursue studying fashion. And I actually started to work in retail prior to studying fashion. So
Mm.
early on, my very first job, well, not my first job, but one of my first jobs out of high school was at Bloomingdale's, which inspired me a whole lot. I met a lot of people. I became a personal shopper and started shopping for the likes of like Glenn Close and all these famous people that would come through. And I was just taken aback by like how people transition when they feel good about what they have on. And I think that is what made me love it so much, was being able to inspire people to really love themselves and love how they look and present and show up, and being my creative self and being able to cultivate that in others was really what I was passionate about. So I decided I wanted to learn how to design as opposed to just loving on other designers' work. I wanted to learn how to do it myself, and obviously inspired by my mom's ability to do so well. And she supported me a lot through this time, but I realized like designing and sewing are right, completely different.
Okay.
You have to really love to sew. It's a very tedious and very detailed work that you really have to have a love and passion and craft for it. And I appreciated learning about it. But I found that my love was with the people and seeing them become inspired by how they looked and what they wore and being able to express themselves. And so when it comes to being a chief lifestyle, as you know, I've taken on many other roles in life. And I didn't just want to be a stylist, right? Because a stylist, in common terms, is just someone who dresses someone and really brings their personality to life visually through their like clothing. But I wanted to be able to enhance the whole person, and so like enhance the way they think about life, enhance the way they see themselves, enhance the way they perceive the world and others around them, the way they love, the way they care for themselves. And so
I get it now. I get it. Like the
so when people are like, what is a lifestyle?
I was like, something just like clicked in my head, right? When I was like, oh, now I get it, right? Okay, great. Because I was like, what the hell is that, right?
Yes, everybody said it's totally a term that, well, I thought I made up, but apparently it's been used in the past. I don't know if people have the same interpretation.
Right, exactly. But something that sounded like a bell just went up, and I was like, oh, the whole life, like a life coach, a life styler.
Yes.
Right.
And I never considered myself to be a life coach. I was just like, I want people to feel good about themselves. And if that meant I had to write a book that they read and they got the message that way, or if I dressed them really well and they showed up and wowed the crowd, they got it that way. Or if I just provided them with a skincare product that made their time in the bath super soothing and relaxing, then they got it that way, right? And they're a way to coach them, I guess, through their entire life in different arenas and reach them and just help them realize how amazing they are.
That's a lot. That's a big, big, big package.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes.
A lifestyle, right?
I'm realizing that now.
Yeah. You know what was interesting is, and I was going to ask you, I think inspiration. Your mom inspired you in one sense around all the fashion and everything. And now going in this direction to like deal with the whole person, right? What has inspired you to move in that direction, and what, to get you there now? Because I like the idea of it all, right?
Totally. And I realize, and the reason I say it, I realize now that it's such a big task is because I understand that anything that God has put in your heart is going to be bigger than you. It's not going to be something that you could achieve alone. And I think me returning to the Lord, because I grew up with Christ in my household, but I think, I know in my 20s, I was doing something totally different. And so after I had my daughter, and I went back to church and gave my life to Christ again and got baptized, I had this come to Jesus with the concept that the gifts that I have are to be given, and they extend across many arenas because of the talents that I have. And so I didn't want to be someone that was holding on to these gifts and these talents and not sharing them. And if I were to share them, what would be the purpose? How would I truly be serving my community in a way that would glorify God and also provide others with what they needed? Because a lot of people sell a lot of things and give a lot of things, but if it's not serving the community in the way that it's needed, then what is it all for?
It's interesting to hear you talk about being in the church. You said terms that jumped out for me, like glorifying God. A lot of times we hear those terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to really understand how that supports you. What is it about, being in the church community, right? Being with like-minded Christian people that supports you.
I would have to say the importance of like-minded people, I really realize now in my life more than ever as I work to do something bigger than me, because there is something about having people who not only think the way you think or live life the way you live life, but also are willing to challenge some of what you think or do according to the standards in the Bible. So a lot of what we see and consume on a daily basis is like just out there, right? All of this information is out there, and it's like you take it or leave it, you accept it as true or not. But society is moving so far away from a standard. And I think that for me, the Bible is the standard. The Word of God is the standard. And when you have people who also share in that, you have someone that, the Bible says iron sharpens iron. And so you have someone to keep you aligned with that, or support you in staying aligned with that, but also someone who can pray for you, and someone who can be strong when you are at your weakest and go to God before you. I always say, like, there is nothing more precious and beloved than someone who speaks to the Lord on your behalf. And so to have people in your life that'll do that for you and see your greatness and not let you not see your own greatness is amazing to me.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think of community, as such, right? And the church is that community,
Yeah.
right? Where you are nourished, where the Bible is the basis, and you're able to, take that information and live in the world and also interact with others, because you said, like, there's so much information out there and so many things, and being able to stay focused also is an interesting concept, because I think about my brother who always says there's just so many religions, it's just too much diversion. Right? You can think about if there's just too much alcohol out there, you might get drunk, right? And I don't know what I'm comparing it to, but
it's true.
So many religions and so many books and so much information, and we have access to so much more information now.
Yeah.
I think it's important if you have a community that can embrace what you believe and your thoughts, right? And
absolutely.
I think that's really cool, because also I love going to church because I love singing gospel music, right? When I think about it, that was church for me, being in the choir. So we all have our own ways of forming community. So my
Absolutely.
community was always like the church choir, and I loved singing the music, and I always felt that that was a form of ministry also, singing to
Absolutely.
the people and helping them to praise and worship and feel good, right? So
Absolutely.
that was, I missed that. I was like, oh, we need to go to church. And I found this church that I really like down the street here in Harlem on 116th Street. I like it because you get to praise and worship. And then the guy, the minister there, the guy I'm calling him, he really, I love the way he gives the message.
Yeah, I
It's
think I
like
know
Chris,
what you're talking about, and I've
yeah,
been there. I love it.
yeah. And so I think different churches resonate with different people, different, even different spiritual practices, because in studying all of them, I can resonate with some of the Buddhist practices that I love, right?
Yeah.
And so then to find what works specifically for me, right? And what I like is that there's just so many options and we get to choose what works for you, great. But that might not be where another person finds their peace
Yeah.
or what works for them. And I think it's really great when we can start to just accept that people can have their way. I think we'll be less stressed out if we were trying to like convert people, right?
It's so funny you say that. A friend of mine earlier today said she requested that when people come into her office, the two topics they don't discuss are religion and politics because they always turn into an argument. And I think that people, especially with religion, they always want to be on the right side of
Yeah.
religion. And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, everyone's truth is their own. And, I just personally go where God has led me to go.
Right.
And I know that his requirement of me is to love others. So I'm not so much concerned with what you choose, but choose to love you. And hopefully through my love for you, you will see what God is wants you to see. It bothers me when people battle about religion and the
Right.
Bible.
Exactly. Exactly. And I talk about God. I refer to God. I refer to God as the universe, spirit, God within me, all the different things, right? And what I believe is what I believe, as you said. And so I live by what I believe. And each one of us, we all have our beliefs. And I think interesting about beliefs, some of it is what we've learned over time that we decide, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to believe that, right? And then it has become our belief. And so we go with that. A lot of times, as I feel like now, as you start to look at, well, what do I really believe? You get to a certain point where you really start to say, okay, what do I really believe? Right. And then that's when I think there is that shift, in even in your life, right? Because as we talk about, and I know as a lifestyle, you talk to people about moving to the next level, right?
Yeah.
And how they can get out of their own way. And techniques for creating your best life is a part of what you also do, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting. I probably have said a lot of things, right?
All valid.
But yeah, I love it all because, one thing that I did want to go back to, I love the idea of dealing with the inside and the outside of the person. That's what I wanted to say to you earlier, right? I love that whole concept, right? Because the way people look and dress make a really big impact on their attitudes, whether they're
Yes.
smiling, whether they're happy or not, right? And as we talk about self-care a lot too, is a part of having a healthier attitude.
Yes.
You know, um, I know that you're a parent, right? You
Absolutely.
have mentioned, right? You have what your daughter is like, what, a teenager now?
She is 15 years old, 15
Wow.
going on 40.
I know, I understand. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit to you about being a parent during like COVID and now how
Yeah,
you're shifting out of that, right?
yeah.
What's been supporting you, what supported you through that, and is supporting you in shifting out of that.
Yeah, so I was a bit in denial in the beginning of what was happening in the world. I work in education full time. I'm a director of operations during the day, and I work with children similar age group as my daughter. And during that time, we kind of were wondering, like, what is going to happen? Will schools close? And while wondering how to manage like other people's children, right, I am also thinking about, well, what's going to happen with my child? Like, how is she going to function at home in this transition, and what will it do to her emotionally, and how can I support her through this time? And it turned, as even though there was this bit of fear that set in, because it was like, what is COVID and what are the effects, and constantly hearing the sirens outside and not wanting to go outside. And um, it became one of the most beautiful times of our lives, because we spent every hour of every day together for months. That time that we never would have had if life had gone on as normal. I think as a single parent at that, I've spent a lot of time hustling and bustling, making sure she was where she needed to be so I could get where I need to be, and picking her up and making sure she was fed and homework was done, and waking up very early the next day to do it all over again, and being able to provide her with what she needed on the weekends to, um, empower her as a young person to learn and develop other skills other than what she was learning academically, whether it be through dance or swimming, and then church on Sunday, and then all over again on Monday, right? And so for all of that to come to a complete stop, and for me to like look at this young girl that went from being a middle schooler to a high school teenager, it was like, I need to learn her all over again. I need to get to know her. Um, and build, and was able to build a bond that I know probably would not have been possible in the same way had COVID not happened. So there was the gratitude for that, even though during the time my family was going through a lot. We had suffered loss, and um, we would just the past couple of years have been tough. So COVID was just like additional. And so there was a bit of reflection time where I had to sit and be like, what is my life about? Like, I'm here with a purpose. Am I happy? And if I can't answer with a yes, what do I need to be doing with my time now that I have it, that I wouldn't have had before, to reflect on my next steps? What, and it didn't have to be like a career change, a life change, but just like the personal development of it. And once I did that, I jumped into how can I support my community? And that is what stamped for me that I find true value and purpose in being able to support my community. I started hosting virtual events, empowerment events, doing all these things on Zoom when I had never really used Zoom before. But we were figuring it out, and my daughter was watching all of this, right? So she was, in a sense, not only seeing more of me in action, but also learning how to thrive at a time where life can be extremely difficult.
That's really good. That I've heard that from from a lot of people. Although it was like this big whirlwind. There are like two things that happened. The loss was there, but then the connection and the family connection and the
Yeah.
time that you just really had to be with that person and being able to appreciate that as we move out of that whole period, and now back in, I think about the kids need a lot of support too.
Yeah.
We can't, how do we just throw them back out there and say, oh, it's all good, right? Go, right? And so, as parents, there's still that job still has to be, how do I get my child, back?
Yeah, this is something, as you know, being a director of operations is something that I'm grappling with every day, even though we are on break for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to be faced with many children who have not been in school for almost 2 years, but also have not really achieve the level of understanding in the academic realm that they need to be in the
That
grade
too.
that they're in. And a lot of things, children respond to things differently. A lot of people will say that children are resilient,
Mm-hmm.
but you think about I anyway think about little things like they've been staring at computer screens for the longest. Like some of them will probably need glasses, and
Right.
who's going to be there to support the family that can't afford to do that because they have 4 kids? Who's going to be there to like support the family when the child is acting out or rebellious because they don't understand the schoolwork, because they aren't able to sit still and really focus because they haven't had to do it in a structured way in the past 2 years.
Right.
And it definitely takes a village any other time. It's going to take the village and beyond this time, because so many people are going to be pulled on in ways that they haven't been before, from social workers, school social workers and guidance counselors to anyone that is willing to step up and say, here's how I can support. And I think for parents, it's important now to truly understand where you have your child enrolled in school,
Yeah.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
a big influence, and it's such a critical time in their lives, transitioning from what we've just been through, that it can either make or break them. So
Yeah.
it's now is more than ever is to really be attentive to everything your child is saying and doing. We've had students do searches for like how to commit suicide on their Chromebooks, and ways to fight depression. And so we think children, they're okay, they're fed, they have everything we purchased for them, so they should be good. When in reality is like they don't really understand their emotions right now, what's happened in the world, and why their life has shifted so much. And so to that point, it is going to require a lot to bring them from where they are to this new level or new way of living and learning.
It's
Which,
a lot too, yeah. Like you were
yeah,
saying, there's so. I mean, I've counted like three different things so far, right? That have to be dealt with in this whole thing. You're at a charter school in operations. Do you
yeah.
see them doing anything differently and preparing for these things, or is it like, are you seeing a shift? I guess that's what I would say in the level of support they are providing. And a charter school may be different because you get funding for certain things.
Yeah.
So if your public school level would be a whole nother thing.
Yeah, so I can say for us, we have begun to do work in culturally responsive teaching, which is important to really serving the communities that we're in, and um, empowering the entire child. There's a focus on social emotional well-being and health. Um, and these are things that have never been discussed before. And so I think the discussion and the preparation of it is a huge step forward. But I also think that the gap they want to close with the learning loss is
Mhm.
taking a front seat. And so the academic rigor might be more important in some aspects than
Mm,
the
mhm, mhm, mhm,
social emotional health. And
mhm.
each child is different. And it's going to be a tricky scenario
It
either way.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the academic one is going to be very, very tricky,
Es-
right?
Especially when it's being approached in like learning loss, right? That we have to recover time. That's a lot of time to recover.
Recover,
And
right? And then think about the different tests that you used in the past at this point to test the levels. I'm sure if you use those same standardized tests, the levels would be all over the place. It wouldn't be a year, to use as a standard, I would say. So
that's
then how do you, yeah, it's
yeah.
quite a,
A lot of it was optional this year, but there are things to the so many things that I mean, someone is thinking about it, but I think the average person is not, right? So like for majority of the year, kids, or last year and a half, almost 2 years, kids have been on like iPads, Chromebooks,
Mhm,
computers.
mhm.
So if you were in kindergarten or first grade and your handwriting is something you should be perfecting at this point, what happens when you get to second grade and your handwriting is not where it should be, and you're
Mhm.
frustrated because you've been doing tapping keys all this time. And
Mm.
there's, I
Ooh, at levels.
levels. I feel for our children, I feel for our educators, our parents,
Yeah,
our
yeah,
humanity,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
that to me, even if we just say in the educational realm, you have the parent, the teacher, the CAD, the administrator, all of you guys getting together to figure out what's best, right? And there's still the parent who says, "Oh, now my kid can go back." There's a whole nother level of what you have to
right.
deal with, right?
Right. Some parents just drop off and see you at dismissal, and whatever, do whatever you do, make it happen. I'll be like, we need your support, mom, dad, we need your help.
How can you help? Help, help, right? Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think about, um, as I said, in your school, as a charter school, some of the things that can happen. You can bring some of that to the community. As you
Yeah,
talk about how do you support your community, there are ways that where there's that lack, you could bring it to the community in many different ways. And that could be a
yeah,
way of, supporting the whole
yeah,
thing. 'Cause it's going to take a lot, and it's a huge public New York City school system. But if in pockets you can create ways
yeah.
to support in your community, I think that may be one way that we could get past this. But as we all know, we have to just keep working
Yes.
because so many different things will come up for that. Well, I applaud you for being in education at this time, right? And I know that wherever you can, you'll make a difference. You know,
Yeah.
um,
It's such an honor to be trusted with other people's children.
mm,
As a mom, my daughter is so valuable, and I am always so concerned about not only what is available to her in the future and what I can provide for her, but like who she's becoming as a person and her
mm,
contribution to society. And so the influence that educators and people outside of the home have on children is
yeah.
important. So to just have that influence is an honor.
And too, when you think about it, they spend more time than with us. So that's why it was really important to really connect during this time,
Yeah,
because you were dropping her off at school, picking her up, doing all your businesses right on the weekend.
exactly. making her my assistant. Yeah.
Right, right. So, all of that, right? Um, talk about how you got to the product line and tell us where your products are and how you got to RDC, right?
Awesome. Oh my God. This is such a gift, right? I initially was home during the Advent season of 2014. Christmas was approaching, and I was like, I want to do something really special for my family. Gifts, like I don't want to buy them the things we normally buy in exchange, and a year later we have no idea where it's at, or we've gifted it to someone else. And um, I just thought back to my grandmother who, being from Guyana and coming to America, raising her 9 children and being raised in that culture, we learn that a lot of what we consume is not good, right? If it's not created in a home. I could probably count on one hand how many times I've seen my grandmother eat outside of the home. And so she would grow things in her backyard, and there was just always this knowledge and understanding that everything from the earth is good, and you can use it to nourish your body, heal your body, and beyond. And so I wanted to create something natural that could create a self-care experience for my family that was good to the skin and smelled good, felt good. And so I created a natural exfoliator, a sugar scrub, and everybody loved it. I was in shock, but I was like, wow, like I didn't think it was something that they would go crazy for. And then I gifted a few of the members of my church family, and they loved it. And then they were asking for it again, and they were like, you need to start selling this because it's so good. And so that's how I got started. And what was just like a sugar scrub became body butters and lotion and candles. And so now I'm really I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but it was certainly not the direction I thought I would go in. But again, my love for creating experiences for people to fall in love with themselves and nurture themselves was really the passion behind continuing on and really creating an entire brand behind it.
How's it going? How's the business going?
It's so good. So I am always sold out.
Oh, wow, that's a good thing, right?
That is a good thing.
Right.
It's something I'm still learning and growing in. I use very authentic products, natural and organic products. And it's important to me that people receive that every time. So I never want to deviate. By this point, a lot of people would have used big brands, wholesalers to like redevelop their product, and then there are other things included. You don't know what's in it. And I've always wanted it to remain authentic. And since the pandemic started, shipping and a lot of things that came from outside of the country were extremely difficult to get, and sometimes still are. So it's great when it's sold out, but a lot of the times it's sold out because it's hard to get those natural organic products.
You making it in your kitchen?
I am making it in my kitchen, and they're made to order. So when someone orders, I make it when they order it. I don't like to have it sitting around. They all have a long shelf life, but I like when people receive it that it's fresh and the best.
Oh, that's really, really cool, right? Where do you see your business going? Do you think that you got so many things going on?
I know. I am slowly creeping back into fashion. I cannot leave it alone, and it won't leave me alone. So it's definitely something I am working toward. It is. I just love to dress. I love to dress others. I love to see people feeling good and looking good. I envision just like everybody in one place, dressed well, skin glowing, feeling good, and life is amazing. And if I have anything to do with that, I've done my job.
Okay, so you're just moving back into fashion. Well, that's really good because I think I was reading something where you saying that now understanding what you love, what you're passionate about, and all the things you've done, now you kind of understand your purpose. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What's your
Yeah.
purpose? I guess no. And the reason I say that is because everybody's kind of trying to figure out, what is my purpose here? What is it? What can I do that makes me feel good? And feel like a contribution. I think that's
Yeah.
what purpose kind of feels like, right?
Yeah. I would say that I find that sharing the knowledge that I have and have acquired over the time through my experiences allow me to reach people in a way that others haven't. Like we all have our audience, we all have our people who hear us better than they hear others.
Mhm.
And um, I really believe that it, for me, is empowering young women of color to strive no matter what they've been through, where they've come from, what they're currently experiencing, whether they are a single mom, married, um, a past that they are ashamed of, that
Mhm.
they too have a value and God sees them as amazing and great and their purpose, and to support them in finding that purpose and living out their dreams. I My focus, I would say, is on young women of color, but the men are welcome too. I love to engage in conversation about the dynamic between men and women in the world, especially the Black man and the Black woman, and help our community find ways to support one another and not separate and not be divided and not against each other, but to see how we belong together, and not necessarily in romantic relationship, but just as community and how we should care and support one another. And I feel like I do that through my day job and education and working with students and families. Like, I wish I could say we just have students in that school and educate them and send them home, but a lot of times we are a mediator between parents who don't co-parent well, and um, in the same way, like when I host events and I talk about my products or I teach people how to make certain products that I have, I talk about the importance of self-care and what it means. It's not just having glowing skin, but it's having a glowing heart and a glowing soul and glowing mind that exudes the energy that you want to receive. So um, this empowerment is, I think, has been what has pushed me, and seeing people on the other side of it. I could do it for hours. I could do it for days. I love it so much, and so I'm certain that that is where my purpose lies.
That's beautiful. That you can share that, and you found a way to support. I like it, young Black women, because they need a lot of support in many different ways. Right? We can show them so many different things. Tell me the name of your book and talk about the book. Uh,
Oh yes.
yeah.
So How Treasures Emerge, A Guide to Survive Being Buried Alive, is a book I wrote to support um, the person, I would say, because I think men would find value in it as well, who feels like everything has gone wrong and nothing ever goes right. And that their circumstance is temporary. I think sometimes it's hard to see that when you're in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about my experiences. I talk
Mm-hmm.
about becoming a mother at 25 and trying to figure out how to feed this child and not having a stable job. I talk about abusive relationships and bouncing back from that as a person, and not necessarily into another relationship, but finding my value and my strength again after such a horrific experience. I talk about the importance of connections and how your circle can create or destroy. I also talk about what it means to be dynamic and how that supports you in your life, in every area of your life. So it's a lot based in biblical teachings, but a lot of inspiring stories and support with reflecting on your own personal life. There's opportunities to reflect after every chapter.
So yeah, I was curious, like how do you mix in the biblical teachings in, and so you put them at the end of each chapter? Because I was like, biblical teachings, right?
Yeah.
So how do you?
So one chapter I speak about how important everything we say is, because life and death is in the power of the tongue, and how experiences in my life have taught me that, shown me that, and how it can transform the way we live just by what we say. If we understand that we are created in the image of God, and we too are creators, right? And the Bible, people will say, Christians will often say, God is a man and he cannot lie, and he can't lie because everything he says is true. Everything he says comes true. And if we look at ourselves in that way, like what we speak is our truth, we have to start speaking the things that we want to see, the things that we want to experience. And so just speaking a lot about what I've learned, what I've experienced, and what is possible.
Wow, that sounds really good. I will be interested. And say that title again, because that was like
How Treasures Emerge.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought you said something there. I was going to say.
Yes. It's a guide to survive being buried alive.
Yeah, okay, right. I got to survive it. And okay, great. It's based on it. So what would be, you think, your book? What would be like 2 or 3 takeaways that people would get from, getting the book, following the exercises? I like the idea of the practice, because everything is a practice and we have to continuously practice, right?
Yeah.
And then, what would you say would be the takeaways from that?
Yeah, so I know in the past from me, I have either read things, whether it be in books or the Bible or even an article, and I can think to myself, someone else in my life who would benefit from reading this, right? I immediately go to someone else's story. And I think because I've added in this piece of reflection, that it forces you to think about your life and the moments in your life that you see yourself in that moment, whatever chapter you're in. And the point of that chapter, you now have to really look at yourself in your life, and either what you do with that information, it's your choice, but now you are aware of it. And a lot of what How Treasures Emerge does is bring an awareness of how you can shift and transition at any time in your life based on how you're thinking, speaking, who you're connecting with, and the choices that you're making. One of the chapters, Decisions, talks a lot about how we make decisions and how difficult it is for us to make decisions. And the best time to make a decision, right? Sometimes we make decisions when we're angry. That's not a good time to make a decision. Or when you're hungry, that's not a good time to make a decision, right? So I think people will get clarity. They'll gain a moment of reflection and an opportunity to look at themselves. They'll gain clarity about what they want. And they'll also find themselves and love for themselves within a book, a grace that they need to forgive themselves and move forward and feel empowered in doing so.
I love that. I love that because people are always looking for that. And as you said, some people can hear it from you, some people can hear it from others. So we all have a place that we can share. And our people will come to us and they'll be able to hear. Because when I get on certain kicks, at one point, Abraham, everything was about Abraham, the law of attraction, Esther Hicks, like every day, right? Now I've shifted a bit. I still listen today, and I remembered I didn't listen for 2 days, and when I listened today, I was like, I know why I listen to this every day. Because there was just this renewed sense of joy, power, control, and ease and grace and all this stuff that I got from it, right? Now I'm reading this, The Power of the Subconscious Mind.
Oh yes, I talk about that book in my book as well.
Oh my God, this book is like, and I want to tell the whole world to read the book. You know how you get on a book and you're like, if you read this book, it will change your life, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I am now. And so understand, you know how at different levels you understand it at a much deeper level. So when you read it a second time, it was like, oh, a much deeper level, right? And I realized that it's all practice. It's a continuous practice, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I ask each person is, what are your top 3 spiritual practices? Because I talk about the spiritual toolkit. The spiritual toolkit are all the different practices that we have that are personal to us, that we use. We get to use these practices in times when we need them. And they may change over time, as I was talking about Abraham. As I think about when I meditate and the different things that I do, what would you say are your top 3 practices now? I guess, right?
Yeah, I would say top is prayer. I tend to pray in the shower a lot. I'm not sure why it's my favorite place to pray, but it's where I speak to God the most. And my daughter complains, well, she doesn't really complain, but I do spend a long time in the shower. And it's because I'm praying and I'm most of the time just grateful and so much gratitude for what who the Lord is in my life and what He's done for me, but also seeking answers, seeking what He desires for me to do, what is next, what I think a lot of times, I say this jokingly, but a lot of times when people are like, say to me, oh, talking to God, I've been talking to God. I'm like, well, are you listening? Because the communication has to go both ways, right?
I was going to ask you that. How do you hear? I always say to people, when do you hear what God is saying to you? You're doing a whole lot of talking to God, right? Like you just said, are you listening? So at what point do you hear what God is saying to you, right? And that's also interesting,
Yeah, so that's where I try to do my listening, because it's most quiet, right? No one is talking to me while I'm in the shower. The phone is not in the shower. It's just me and God at that moment.
I love water, so I can relate to that, right? I think so too. I have shower moments. Like if I'm really upset about something and I need to work something out, the shower is where I'll go, right? And there is, I feel you because I call them shower moments, but there are moments when you're inspired and you get the answer that you're looking for.
Yes,
You're like,
yes,
yes, right. So I
yes,
totally relate to that. Okay, what
yes.
else you got? I love
Um,
that prayer in
yeah.
the shower, right?
The other is I will either read, so I definitely like read the Bible every morning, like daily scripture, but I also find plans that speak to me at the moment. So if a time where like my attitude is just foul and I'm just like, maybe it's a gratitude thing. Let me go find
Right.
a Bible plan on gratitude and get my life together, and be really engulfed in the scriptures that pertain to that. And also fasting. Admitted, the Lord
Mhm.
knows, the Lord is aware. Me and him have had this discussion. He knows it is not my favorite thing to
Mhm.
do, but it
Mhm.
is my favorite way to reach him. Um,
I love fasting
yeah,
too. I do. I love to eat and I love to fast. It's like the two of them
yeah,
right go together for me. So I understand that. I love the whole the experience of not eating,
yeah.
right? Is really good.
And that day when you go from like still yearning for food and hunger to where it's like, oh, was I ever hungry? It
Well,
feels like you were
exactly.
never hungry.
Right, exactly. And then you get to the day where you could do another day, right?
Yeah,
Right? Because I do like a 3-day juice fast,
yeah,
right? And I
yeah,
try like every other month, right? By third day, I could go the fourth day because I
yeah,
am like up and I am moving. First day a little draggy. Second day, by third day, I'm like, yes, right?
yeah.
No food, right?
And feeling his presence is just amazing.
Hmm. Wow. So it's been really, really good having you. How can people get? And she also does websites and music.
Well, I'm
Oh,
capable. Now wait, now,
wait, okay.
now wait,
No,
now.
no, not that anymore.
I can do it, but it's not on
Not what
my
she's
to-do
selling.
list.
Okay, good.
I support my friends when they need me, but yeah.
Okay, she's like, no, 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 right? How can people find you, right? And
Yeah, yeah. So on Instagram and Facebook at Renata in Style. Twitter also Renata in Style. And you can always go to my website to learn more at renatadelcarmen.com.
yes, it's been really, really, really great having you tonight. I need a stylist. I'm gonna need you to be my
Oh,
chief,
Rev G,
right?
you are fly. I'm trying to learn from you. You sitting here like royalty in this purple with the lip to match. Listen, I see you and I love it.
Yeah, so I really, really appreciate you, and I will be in touch. And thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun, such a blessing. Thank you so much, Rev.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on Conversations with Reverend G. I'm here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can find me daily on Facebook and YouTube as Reverend Grenetta Mason and on Instagram as Rev Grenetta. I'd like to support you in living your best life with grace and ease, finding some joy in your life. And I'd like to leave you tonight with just a thought about what kind of things can you do to add some joy to your life. Stepping out and doing something that's a little bit different than we've done, having some fun. It's summertime. Let's bring some joy in right now. I will see you next week at 8 p.m. right here on WEMS Radio Live. Have a great, great week.